All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a completely different angle on Malcolm Gladwell's famous book, Outliers. Look, we're not going to treat this like some dusty sociology textbook. Instead, think of it as a literal software update. A Life OS upgrade, if you will, designed specifically to patch those annoying bugs in our daily routines, our communication, and our underlying cultural programming. We'll be using visuals pulled straight from the source PDFs as our background today to guide us through these chapters. Because, let's be honest, if you've ever felt like you're just hitting an invisible ceiling, well, you might literally just be running on outdated legacy code. So let's fix that. Here's our agenda for today. Booting up Life OS, installing practical intelligence, communication code switching, mental antivirus software, system synthesis, and finally, the ultimate execution checklist.
Section 1. Booting up Life OS.
So the whole philosophy behind this new operating system is just absolutely fascinating. We tend to think our failures, class barriers, communication breakdowns, hitting a wall at work, we think they're personal defects. But looking at the source material, it reveals they're actually legacy code. Basically, environmental bugs and cultural habits we just inherited from our ancestors. It's like a computer crashing because it's trying to run a massive new program on Windows 95, right? We crash when we try to navigate modern, high-stakes environments using outdated cultural programming. We gotta overwrite it. Section 2. Installing practical intelligence. Okay, so the old bug a lot of us are running on is called natural growth. That's this passive belief that raw IQ and natural talent alone are just magically going to carry us through life. But the patch we actually need to install, that's concerted cultivation. This is active. It's a deliberate training process. Look, high IQ is just the minimum hardware requirement. What actually lands you the job or closes that big deal is practical intelligence, knowing exactly what to say, to whom, and when to say it. It's the learned ability to actively negotiate and deal with authority figures to get exactly what you need. So how do we actually install that patch? Enter our executable code download, the SSLA protocol. Now, this protocol was used by KIPP academies to artificially implant middle-class practical intelligence into kids from under-resourced backgrounds. Honestly, it's essentially a physical cheat code. It simulates a healthy sense of entitlement and confidence. Here's how it works. It's an acronym you execute step by step. Smile, sit up, listen, ask questions, nod, and track with your eyes. And hey, this isn't just about being polite. No way. It is a literal, physical code you can execute during a high-pressure meeting or tough interview. When you're feeling intimidated by the boss, you don't need to summon some abstract inner courage. Just execute the SSLANT protocol. It immediately overrides the power distance and firmly establishes your presence in the room. Section 3. Communication code switching. Now we have to talk about the power distance index, or PDI. This is crucial because it's often baked right into our native languages. The source analysis brings up this incredibly tragic example of Korean Air in the 1990s. They suffered fatal crashes, but not because of bad pilots or broken planes. It was a language bug. Their native language had such strict hierarchical grammar that subordinates were using what's called mitigated speech, meaning instead of shouting, "Captain, pull up, we're going to crash," they would soften the warning into a polite hint. Something like, "The weather looks quite bad, doesn't it?" That kind of receiver-oriented communication, it's literally fatal when you need split-second clarity. But the way the aviation industry fixed this fatal bug is brilliant. They didn't send the pilots to therapy to find their courage or anything like that. They forced a code switch. By switching the entire cockpit language to English, they totally bypassed that hierarchical grammar entirely. It gave the co-pilots an alternative, low-power distance identity. Plus, they brought in crew resource management, or CRM. They swapped out those vague hints for direct, sender-oriented emergency scripts. And guess what? We can use this exact same patch at work today. Try creating a flat hierarchy zone in your meetings where titles are totally dropped, and use direct override scripts like, "Manager, I am concerned about the risk of this decision." It strips away all the emotional weight of challenging authority because you're simply executing a safety protocol. Section 4. Mental antivirus software. A huge concept in this module is Merita's bargain. Upward mobility comes with a steep psychological cost. The source material talks about a student named Merita. For her to succeed and jump classes, she had to wake up before dawn, study until 11 p.m., and essentially sacrifice her old community ties and free time. It's a heavy cultural bargain. To survive this kind of transition without crashing your system, you have to develop dual citizenship. You use your new, optimized code in the professional world, sure, but you actively preserve those cultural anchor points at home. That way, you don't lose your identity or get crushed by the pressure. And part of this antivirus software is completely reframing how we look at failure. We need to delete that legacy code telling us failure is a lack of talent or a personal defect. Here's the system update. Failure is a system error. Look closely at outliers. Their success or failure was often dictated by environmental glitches. Things like being born in the wrong month for a youth sports cutoff or just lacking exposure to early resources. You aren't defective. Your ecosystem just needs some debugging. Adopting this cold, analytical approach is absolutely crucial for protecting your mental health.
Section 5. System synthesis. All right, let's put it all together. Success is never a solo endeavor. It's more like a grand conspiracy. It requires all these different gears turning together in the perfect environment. You need the 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. You need the practical IQ to negotiate. You need to be able to code switch your communication. And you absolutely must seize demographic dividends. When all of these elements finally align, boom, your Life OS is fully booted, completely optimized, and ready to scale.
So how do you actually apply this grand conspiracy to uncover hidden opportunities? Well, you have to find your demographic trough. Think about Joe Flom. He became a powerhouse lawyer by taking on hostile takeovers. At the time, that was the dirty work elite firms totally despised. So he found a niche that everyone else ignored, racked up his 10,000 hours without any interference, and was perfectly positioned when the market inevitably shifted. Or take Louis Bourgonet. He was a poor immigrant who noticed there were no girls' aprons in stores. He didn't sit around waiting for venture capital. He just went out, bought fabric, and sewed 40 aprons overnight. That is rapid execution. He created meaningful work for himself, work that gave him autonomy, complexity, and a direct link between his effort and his reward.
Section 6. Ultimate Execution Checklist.
Now we're bringing everything down to the micro level. These are the specific, actionable protocols you need to integrate into your daily workplace and personal management systems right now. First up, stop seeking the one right answer. You've got to train your practical IQ by using divergent thinking. Next time you hit a roadblock, force yourself to come up with multiple, completely unconventional solutions. Second, deploy those CRM scripts we talked about. In your very next high-stakes meeting, enforce flat hierarchy communication. No more dropping polite hints. Say it clearly and directly. Manager, I'm concerned about this project. And third, become a Mr. Chance. Look, the system isn't naturally fair. So use whatever leverage you have to create a 10,000-hour opportunity for someone who's currently blocked by that system. Give a junior team member a shot they wouldn't normally get. Become their demographic dividend.
And that brilliantly illustrates the ultimate power of this explainer. You are no longer bound by the invisible rules of your ancestors or the rigid structures of your office. You are the engineer of your own ecosystem now. So I want to leave you with this final question. What outdated cultural constraint or mental bug are you going to uninstall today to fully reboot your reality? Get out there, switch your code, and I'll catch you next time.